Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over the next 4 movies I've watched and trying to figure out a spot to film in the house when it's really hot out and the AC is on and very noisy. Has been an adventure, so I'm trying another new spot. Yay! But not really. So the first 2 movies I'm going to talk about I actually watched in May, and then the other 2 were in June. So I think I'm just going to kind of make a video every time I watch 4 movies, so it isn't going to have like a set time that I post these or whatever, because I just kind of watch movies whenever I feel like it. 3 out of 4 of these are brand new movies, so I think that's kind of fun as well, because since movie theaters are now back open here, being able to go and see new films that were supposed to come out in 2020 or even 2019 has been fun. This first movie is A Quiet Place Part 2. I saw this in the movie theater. This is directed by John Krasinski. It was supposed to come out in 2020, and here in France, it was supposed to release like 3 days after our lockdown happened. And so I remember after we were finally allowed to go outside again after like 3-4 months, all of the posters in the subway were still for this movie. So it was so crazy having it be like June, July and seeing posters, like movie posters from March in there. So it's a 2020 movie, but this came out in theaters in 2021. And this is obviously a horror. It's a sequel to A Quiet Place, and I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. So following the first movie, the Abbott family venture past their now ruined home in search of survivors and a place to stay. It is on this journey that they discover the outside world is more active than they previously believed. But remember, humans are the original monsters of this world. So for me, this one didn't hit the same as the first one did. I actually think I probably enjoy the first one more, although I've only seen it once, so I probably have to give it a rewatch. This one did have a lot more video game vibes, specifically The Last of Us, and if you've seen it, you'll know why. So I did think that was more interesting, because it was almost like watching the story unfold in a video game than a movie. However, this family is a curse on everyone they come across. Like, if you meet this family, you should be worried about your life and your well-being. I also think they're very selfish, and all the characters in this just made really stupid decisions. And even at the end, there was a character that had like just been introduced and stuff, and something happens to him that's really dumb and shouldn't have even happened just because he made some stupid decision at the last second that didn't really make sense and didn't add up to how he had been acting all the way up until that point. And to add on to that, the monsters were also inconsistent in how they acted and reacted to things, and I thought that was kind of annoying, because there would be things that happen and be like, oh, then they should react like this, and that wouldn't happen, or something different would happen that just didn't make sense. And it's like, come on, like, this is the second movie we're seeing these monsters, like, we should be able to understand like how they react to things and what they're doing and stuff. And that was just kind of annoying for me. And I think my husband actually enjoyed this movie better than I did. Like I said, it just didn't hit the same, it didn't feel the same, and it didn't really feel as intense or tense or anything like that as I really expected going into it. And we are definitely going to get a part 3, because the end of this, there really isn't any conclusion, it just kind of stops. So definitely look forward to that. This next one is actually a Netflix comedy special, and that is Bo Burnham Inside. So Bo Burnham actually did everything for this. Like, he filmed it, he created it, he's the only character in it, he edited it, he is all of the labels. And so that is pretty damn impressive, and like, wow, he definitely used his quarantine time. So this came out on Netflix this year. I did not give this a rating though, and I'll explain why in a moment. But this is a comedy special shot and made by Bo Burnham alone over the course of the past year. That's it. That's the description. It's essentially his style of comedic songs, but done in a way that's more a descent into madness. So I found it relatable, but I didn't really feel anything while watching it. Like, there's some funny parts in the beginning, but then I just didn't really find it funny, and I didn't find it anything really. And so at the end of this, I was just kind of like, am I dead inside? And that's kind of why I chose not to rate it, is because I didn't exactly have any feelings about it. And so I'm just like, how am I supposed to put a number on this? It's just you can tell it's just a very personal work of Bo's. And I don't know. It's very hard to explain without watching it, but I would not suggest watching this if you are having any suicidal thoughts or anything of that nature, as it is pretty dark. And when I say it might as well be kind of like a descent into madness, like during quarantine, it really seems like that. So unfortunately, I don't have much to say about this one, just because I have no feelings, I guess. Next, we have the continuation of the Paranormal Activity series with Paranormal Activity 3. This one is directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. Messed that up there. This is another horror, and it came out in 2011, and I actually gave this 3 out of 5 stars as well. In 1988, an entity begins to terrorize young sisters Katie and Christy in this prequel to the Paranormal Activity series. Their father, a wedding videographer, becomes obsessed with trying to capture what's happening in the house, as his wife believes it's all just a child's imagination. So we've actually seen the first 4 in this series now, so the 4th one will be in my next video of this. And the 3rd one, for me, is by far the best, especially in terms of the creep factor and how scary it actually is. So I just ran out of room on my phone, so if the framing is kind of a bit different, that is why. So anyway, as I was saying, I hope I remember it, Paranormal Activity 3 is the scariest in the franchise that we've seen out of the first 4 so far. Instead of there just being like one scene that I enjoy, there's several, and it is pretty predictable and like what's gonna happen and how the characters react and everything, but I just thought it was cool. Like, the visuals and everything were just neat, and I found it scary. Like, I am a huge chicken when it comes to like haunted houses and anything scary, even though I love the horror genre. And so usually in movies, I'll be like peeking like between my fingers and stuff, and this movie made me do that at one point, so that's always a good thing. One thing though is all this crazy stuff is happening like right where the kids sleep, and the kids still choose to sleep there. I thought that was nuts. Like, if I were those kids, I would be like, I'm not gonna fucking sleep here. Like, that is way too much. And also, the mom turned out to be a really annoying character, and that kind of surprised me, because I mean, usually it's like the dude in these movies that's just obnoxious, but this time it was the mom, because the guy was catching all this crazy stuff on camera, and he's like, honey, like, look at this, like, we need to fucking do something. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna watch it, this is all lies, like, stop encouraging them, blah blah blah. And it's like, you won't even look at a freaking video, like, just look, it's evidence. So that was a bit frustrating, but overall I really like this. I personally think any horror movie with children is probably gonna be creepier, just because kids are scary anyway. And lastly, this is the newest movie on this list. We have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is directed by Michael Chavez. This is another horror movie and came out this year, just this month, and I gave it a 2 out of 5. So, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren encounter what would become one of the most sensational cases from their files. The fight for the soul of a young boy takes them beyond anything they've ever seen before, to mark the first time in U.S. history that a murder suspect would claim demonic possession as a defense. So I saw the premiere of it here, and I was so excited for this movie. When they announced the case, like what case this was going to be based on, I was so happy. I've listened to at least 3 podcasts about the Devil Made Me Do It case, so I know a lot about it, and I was so interested to see how they were going to incorporate that into the movie. And like seeing in the trailer how they actually kept that it's a fucking waterbed where like the demon comes from was awesome, because that's actually true. It was a fucking waterbed, and I just think that's so funny and amusing. But unfortunately, that's one of the only true parts of the story that is in this movie. So as you can tell by my rating, this turned out to be more of a disappointment than anything. The description pretty much is only 5% of the actual movie. It just takes all these other plot lines and runs with them and just completely abandons the case, and at the very end it's like, oh yeah, this is what happens to the dude. And it's just like, wow, that was not what I was expecting. But this movie really has shown me how dumb slapping like based on a true story is. Obviously everyone knows like to take that with a grain of salt, but actually like knowing so much about it, going into it and seeing the result was just like, oh, there was pretty much only like 3 things that happened in this that were actually true. Like the fact that there's a waterbed, Lorraine warning the police that something bad was going to happen, that did happen in real life, and that guy murdering the other dude, like that actually happened in real life, obviously. But oh yeah, and the girlfriend did work for like the dog kennel business, like that was actually true, but they didn't live there. That was just where she worked. Unfortunately, the other plot lines they forced in were just boring. I was not interested in it, and they were trying to connect this case with like another one, and that what didn't happen. And so it was all just completely like brand new stuff, and it pretty much was just like put in there for Ed and Lorraine to go on an adventure, when in reality they were only there for like the beginning part of this case, and that was it. So yeah, there's a lot added in that unfortunately didn't add to the movie and just took my enjoyment away. And I was really hoping there was going to be more courtroom scenes. Like I thought that was going to be really interesting. Like, we're having a freaking paranormal courtroom movie. Like that sounds fucking awesome. And that's not what we got at all. So it sucks. But only about the first 15 minutes of this were the best, in my opinion. And it just keeps kind of going downhill from there. And it felt long. It just felt never ending. And as much as I love like the actor and actress playing Ed and Lorraine Warren, they just couldn't save this. And unfortunately, this is one of the worst films in the Conjuring franchise. Which is sad to say, because the case it's based on is just so bonkers and interesting, and they just didn't utilize it well. And I can pretty much say one of the reasons why it failed is because James Wan was nowhere in sight. The guy that directed this is the one that directed The Curse of La Llorona, which was also not a good movie. So that's really, really disappointing, and I hate that you have different directors for like sequels and stuff. Like the reason the first ones did so well is because like the director did a really good job. Don't give it to someone else, especially when they have a bad track record of movies. So yeah, that was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, so I was not happy walking out of that theater. I was just kind of like ranting and raving. So yeah, it is what it is. But anyway, as always, thank you for hanging out with me. It is always appreciated. And if you enjoyed this video and my hating on some of these movies, please like and subscribe, as that helps me out a lot. And until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.